standpoint and from what I am wanting to expose to you all today, if you're not already familiar with it, is something based out of what's called Hoshin Kanri. That's a Japanese term. Bob probably very familiar with that, working at Honda. And you hear a lot of these buzzwords in businesses. The bigger your corporation is that you work for every day, the more you hear this kind of stuff. And I've heard every kind of thing that is imaginable, both good, bad, and indifferent. A lot of times in big businesses, what happens is, hey, we've got this new initiative and this is the greatest thing and it's going to solve all of our problems by the end of the week. Of course, that never happens. That goes away. The next thing shows up and it's the same repeat. What I love about these tools is they work for real. That's the number one tool, one thing I want to get across to people. It doesn't matter that it's in a little book, and it doesn't matter that it's on big corporate places, and it doesn't really even matter that Dr. Deming is the one that's behind it. If you don't know about Dr. Deming, please investigate him. His name is a brilliant process and business helper, if you will. But what mattered to me is when this got introduced to me as a machinist in a machine shop for 30 some years, 27 years I guess at the time, my mind was blown. Like, what? Where has this been my whole life? Why wasn't I taught this? So that's what I want to get into, because they really work. It doesn't matter if you're running a birthday party this weekend for your grandchild or son or daughter, or if you're solving a corporate, complex, multifaceted, multi-facility problem. These tools work. It's that effective. You say, that's crazy. Once you start using it, you'll see it. I got a few stories to back that up. Three major tools we're going to go across one is the affinity diagram, the interrelational digraph, and the nominal group technique, only because they really, really work. I'll give you a 2-minute story if I can. When I first learned these tools, and I was like, wow, this is so exciting. I got so pumped up about it, and I went back to General Electric. I was working there. I was a lead manufacturing engineer. Do you know what that means? It's like being the lead technician at the in our place, it's Rumpke, the trash collector. It's like, I'm a lead engineer, but so is 999 other people, and it's really not that big of a deal until you get to senior levels and then executive band. So it sounds good, but it didn't mean that much, really. But I pulled a meeting together of all the executive and senior band people in our group, because our company, as General Electric, inside of General Electric, we had a small company, and that company was really struggling. Our job was to produce processes and ship them out to places like Greenville and Kentucky and different plants around the United States and make them work and make them effective. It wasn't happening. And we'll go through that story. But I pulled this off in 2 hours. First time I ever did it with executive and senior band people. And they loved it. And it was just, how many times has that ever happened? You know what I mean? Almost never in the history of mankind, in my experience. Anyway, but these tools really, really, really work. So you say, what's an affinity diagram? An affinity diagram is just a brainstorming tool. Okay, why would I do this? Great question. It's all in the book. I'm not selling the book. But why would I do this? Okay, almost always, if not always, you're looking to resolve some issue within your company, your business, your birthday party, the social group you're in, or whatever. I don't want to say issue, just be a matter you're dealing with. How do you ever heard this in maybe a business? This year sales are going to increase 30%. Well, how? Oh, well, we don't want to talk about that. But maybe we would write, how do we increase sales? Here. We're going to have a statement up on our affinity diagram. It's going to be on a nice little flip chart just like these you do at Walmart for 25 bucks or whatever. Your statement's here. And it says, what is our problem statement? This tool is going to brainstorm. Well, so let's say we're all doing, I wish we had the time for all of us to go through this full exercise. It would take about 2 hours. But each one of you would get your own special Post-it notes and a pen, and that's all you really need for the exercise. And every one of you would write out, in response to this question, your particular opinion. Okay? How are we going to increase sales 30% this year? Well, Bob, let's just say, is the supervisor there at that plant, and he says, we're not going to do it without more employees, I can tell you that. So he writes down, we need more employees. It's not employees, right? What does that even mean, Bob? We're like, what? Yeah, Bob. Come on, Bob.
What about Bob?
Yeah, Bob's my buddy, so I'll pick on him a little bit. But we would write down, we need more employees, and we would stick that up here. Now, during this time, you don't talk. You're the group, right? And so we passed all one of these out to everybody, and no talking. I've even got little red foam balls that if you talk, everybody gets one. If Dave says something, which is really hard for him not to say, bam, you all throw it at him. It's fun. But some people might want to use a golf ball, I don't know. But anyway, you all have one of these. You bring your statement to the chart, and you just slap it on here in the old place. That's it. Everybody's got their opinion. There's not a better way to get everybody's opinion in this room than let them write it out and put it on the board. Even if Dave says, how do we increase sales by 30% this year? Dave says, we need to paint the building blue. We're all thinking, Dave, it's a brand new built skyscraper we're working in. Why would we paint this? That's the craziest thing I ever heard. But he's got to express his opinion without judgment. Nobody went, Dave, that's crazy. Don't bring that up. What's the matter with you? Right? It just got put up here. We may later totally reject the idea, but he still feels good that he got heard and he brought the idea out. Okay? So now this is a very disorganized mess, and everybody's got their ideas up here. What do we do with them? That's where it comes. That's we organize the affinity diagram. I did this kind of quick, so forgive my blank pages. But as we go through these topics, we begin to see that Mr. Robert says we need more employees. And Angie said we have a need for 2 more employees in my department, let's just say. And Dave also said something about employees. And what was your name again? Quentin? That's right, Carter. Quentin also mentioned something about employees. And so that's topic A. And every card that was on the front comes in this, it gets organized on the same page and a label given to it. Every topic here, such as we're going to increase sales 30%, and Galen says, well, the first thing we're going to have to do is
Training.
Training, not just training. Our employees need training. We need that full sentence. But now we've got training, and Angie, or what was your name again?
Carrie.
Grant and Carrie both said something about training. Okay? And so all of those go on this topic. And as we go through each topics that have similar and natural groupings, all of you have come to this board with all your ideas and organized them, each one, and said, well, no, I think training goes here. Okay, so we labeled this one training. We have this one about employees, right? But he said employees need trained. Isn't that the same thing? Well, maybe it is. Well, no, it isn't. So you start to have this discussion, right? Well, we're going to go ahead and make a card for employees here, and employees need trained here. We're going to have the same card twice. That's totally fine. It's a similar idea, and both people have a passion about it. Like, I believe this, I believe that. They both going to say, okay, hey, we're going to both put that, we're going to have a card in both columns. Now, I know I'm going really fast. I apologize. Just trying to respect your time. So you have these now, and in this tool,
That was good business education.
in this tool already, what's happened is, now Dave's terribly shy, and he hates to be in meetings. The last thing he wants to do is speak publicly in a meeting. He hates it. He's just that kind of guy. I know him really well. But, and I've had this happen, I had a meeting, the second time I did this at General Electric, we pulled operators and all the contracted machine operators into a room to have a discussion about a problem we were having, where the engineers were saying, listen, you all were trained and you signed a document that says you know how to do our written process. And here it is in this book, and you're not doing it. These jobs that they had, and they would route 50 different jobs in the shop at one given time. Each job had a different color paper, blue, white, red, green, blue, yellow, whatever. Each router, and it had barcodes on it, tons of information. You've probably seen something similar. And that router would be barcoded to say, I'm done at the EDM machine with my operation. It's now ready for the grinder or whatever. But now the engineers are telling the operators, hey, you're not getting this across. You're not getting the product barcoded correctly and moved, especially on these two lines, to get that product to the next process. Now, that's the engineers, right? The operators are saying, oh yes, we are. We did barcode that. We are doing it correctly, and we're doing it just like you told us to, and it's not working. And the engineers are saying, oh no, we have a book that says you signed off, you know what to do, and you're not doing it. And this went on for 6 months.
So then you have a business analyst go in and say, what are you doing? And why isn't it working? And here's
Well,
what needs to change, and developers go do this, and we'll fix it.
I love those points. I want to readdress those in a moment, okay? Really great points. So how do you fix it? Because those engineers are college degree, they're trained. Those operators know what they're doing. They've done it every day and been doing it for decades. So how do you work this battle out, right? This is where the affinity came in, okay? Mike, in this case, this is my Dave of the day, came into that meeting, had a hat on like Bob, and he sat down in the chair, pulled his hat down as low as he could, crossed his arms and said, let me know when this is over, Watkins. It's at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. He leaves at 2:30. First shift, second shift, we're pulling him in between 2 and 3. That was his opening remarks. So talk to me, don't ask me any questions, and I'm not telling you anything. The second time I've ever done this, right? Like, I'm like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I was a little intimidated. I'm the facilitator, right? But as we began to write, he began to think, well, I know something, and he wrote it down, and he put it to the table. Nobody said nothing. He just wrote it down for them. And I thought, and the next little bit, at 4 o'clock, he was still talking, spilling his guts. But why? Because he had been heard. For the first time, the man with the right information and the right knowledge had been heard. He knew he'd been valued, and he was ready to talk. He was going to sing like a bird, and he did. And what the outcome of that one was, real quick, we'll go through the other two tools here quickly. The outcome of that particular meeting was, when they barcoded the laser, beep, beep, the black and white, or the black barcodes, of all those colored papers we mentioned, 2 of them were on perfectly red and perfectly green paper. What's wrong with that, Bob? What's wrong with that?
You go ahead.
Laser.
Yeah.
What color is the laser?
Exactly.
Wait a
Red and
minute.
green soaks it up.
Red and green.
Yeah.
So it saw the black, and the computer went beep, but it didn't see the white space, so it can't read that.
But would
It
it
just
not
saw
give-
it as nothing, as void.
Would it not give an error?
Uh-uh.
Oh.
It just went beep. So what's the operator think?
I
Read
scanned
because
it.
they heard the
Yeah, I
beep.
scanned it. It beeped. I heard it.
Can we do this in the grocery?
Yeah. Right. Can we do this on our packages? We're getting them a lot cheaper, you know.
It beeped me.
Great question. But see, you're saying, so they were saying, what the operators were saying was true, and what the engineers were saying was true, what the operators were saying were both completely true. Completely true.
But
However, the product wasn't moving through the shop. So the upper brass, the executives, you shouldn't have executives visiting your department 3 times in the same month at a company that long, because they have other things to do. If they're there, you're their number 1 priority, and they're looking for solutions. And it might be, and it was at the time, we're clipping this whole business, and we're going to get rid of it. Because why do we need you? You're not doing your job. And it was through a number of these types of things. However, so Mike gets up there, he begins to talk about this stuff, he begins to say, and we get ideas coming out of Mike, he won't shut up, it's great. everybody's happy. They all threw a ball at Charlotte because she talked out of turn, and we knew she would. That's just the way she was. And she was great. She had lots of information, and everybody's having a ball. Literally. 2 hours, we solved a 6-month problem. So, how did we do that? We started with the affinity, we brainstormed the ideas, everybody wrote it up, and then we labeled everything. A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever it was. It can be, you need about 25 cards as a minimum. And by the way, you can do this on notebook, the Microsoft OneNote. By yourself, for yourself. It works that way.
I was thinking it would be a good tool for, like if you're making goals, what do I want
Sure.
my 2026 to
Absolutely.
look like?
Absolutely.
Because when you said do it, you can do it individually.
You sure can. You sure can. It's a great point. Thank you. So, what do you do with this information? Now we've already had all this discussion. Everybody's been up here, crowded around this little chart, and I've got some pictures of that in the past where everybody's up here talking their notes, this, and having this group discussion, right? No judgment. We're just talking about the facts, right? Then you go and you go to the interrelational diagram. Now this gets a little more complex, but it's still pretty simple. Remember our topics from before were, we said this one was employees, right? We'll call this one training. I don't know. You make up something else, we'll write it down. Anybody else got one they want to throw on the chart? I can't think of that. Technology, that's a great one.
How about office supplies?
Yeah, supplies, awesome. Because that actually factored into my story, I'm telling you. Supplies, well, knocked over the tables. What else? Anything else, just real quick, John?
For increasing sales, transportation.
Transportation, okay, that's a good one. Transportation,
You gotta have to be there.
yeah, and,
Advertising. Yeah.
advertising. Yeah, hey, who would have thought of that in a sign shop?
I don't know, but I know a guy.
I know, right? So advertising. Okay, so we just throw these up on the board and we do it in this circular motion, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, now what we're gonna do as a group is have a discussion. Your facilitator, friendly facilitator, is gonna say, folks, does the need for more employees have an effect on training, or does training have an effect on the need for more employees? And we're gonna answer that question as a group. We're going to draw an arrow from here to here that says, yeah, the training definitely going to affect the new employees. You could do a whole thing around just the training. Like, what do we need to train them? How do we need to train them? What documentation do we have? Blah, 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 blah. So you have all this information. And as you go, you're going to begin to see that the training has an effect on the tech. Employees will have an effect on the office supplies, because we're going to need more, right? The advertising is going to affect also the supplies, because we're going to need more whatever. I'm just making this up. And maybe the advertising is going to have an effect on the employees. How are we going to advertise for more employees, right? The transportation, that has an effect on, there's some tech involved, right? And then also the transportation affects
Employees, for sure.
Yeah, employees, for sure. Okay, great. So there we go. And we go around this beginning to ask, does A have an effect on B? Does B have an effect on A? And we make a choice. You have to make a choice. You can't say, yes, A and B both affect each other. Back and forth. You can't have this. You can't, that's a no-no. It's either or. Make a choice. The group will make that choice.
Now,
Now,
like a work car,
huh?
like a work car for the,
Employees, transportation.
yes.
Exactly.
So, for like the work car, like sales people,
Yeah, I have one.
yes.
Yes, so that has an effect. So we have to make that, we're not gonna do, this is not perfect, so we're gonna have to have that discussion. He's already thinking, it's already pulling thoughts into his mind. Oh, well, what about that? How do we answer that? Great question. They're gonna work with this one because we're just sketching, right? But as we go through here, then we're gonna tally up, okay, we're gonna look at A, and that has, we're gonna count two things. The ins and the outs. Okay? So in this case, A has 1 out,
3 in.
and 3 in. Okay, thank you. You're ahead of me. Good job. So B has 2 outs and no in.
0 and 2 the count.
Yeah, right. And you go through that for all of those particular things. I just want to make sure I'm making a correct statement, so I'm checking something in the book. Give me just a moment. I'm sorry, I should add this correct. Page 76. Because there's the ins and the outs is where the magic sauce is. We're going to say what is having the most, what is a driver? Okay, and what is an outcome? So as we look at these tools and we find out what is driving the greatest number of outgoing arrows is a driver of the problem, of the challenge. So in this case,
So far B.
yeah, so far B, but E also has it. But let's just say, just for sake of argument, right, that B also has some sort of effect on whatever. You see what I'm saying?
Sure.
As we get through here, the outs, the largest number, the label with the largest number of outs is your key driver. Now, what has that done for us?
Told us where we need to focus.
Focus.
Got it. Nailed it.
What'd you say,
Focus.
Angie?
She said, tells us where we need to focus. Same
Okay.
thing you said.
Focus.
Boom, right, nail right on the head. We know exactly what to focus on. Now, Angie, you brought up a point earlier. You said, now we're going to bring in that business consultant. He's going to talk to everybody. He's going to talk to this group and that group. He's going to tell you need to do this, and you need to do that, and you need to do that, and you need to do that. And Dave goes, yeah, right.
No.
I ain't doing that. Who do you think he is? Why? Because nobody talked to Dave about, Dave, what's your opinion on this matter? Nobody ever heard your opinion. And you're that quiet guy. You're Mike.
Missed the stakeholder.
Miss somebody. Nobody really got a hold of that, Dave's core belief on what that matter was, right? The difference with this tool is, he's already bought in. He's already invested. He's already invested. He's
It might have
already
been his
engaged.
idea that was up there to begin with.
That was his idea, as a matter of fact. You
Exactly.
know, okay? And because he's so quiet by nature, he wasn't going to say anything. Or he's been burnt 50 times before in his 25 years of experience at the bank. That he's like, you can ask all the questions you want. I'm not telling you anything. I'm done. I'm just here to make a paycheck and go home. We've all been there. So,
like that presentation to an outsider kind of that doesn't really know the business telling someone else like how to basically do it
right.
as well.
Yeah, you come up against some conflict there. You really do. And your point on key stakeholders holds. That's a great point. But it does. I've been through this where we had people come in, and one of the things that one guy said was, the owner needs to go home and stay home. How do you think he took that?
I'm all for
it.
I actually worked in the first business I worked in. That's what the consultant came in and said. Ooh, that was rough. Anyway, long story. Or Matt, how am I doing on time?
Not too good.
Not too good. Not too good.
Try to wrap it up in the next.
Got a red card.
Yeah, we definitely got it.
Throw the ball at me.
Red golf ball.
So all this did was drive discussion and point out where the key drivers are. And one other real quick thing, nominal group technique. Now what do you do with all this information? Everybody gets their cards back. Bob, Dave, Angie, everybody, Carrie, Galen, John, Quentin, and
Grant.
Grant. Sorry, buddy. Sorry.
Terry Grant.
Terry Grant. We're going to judge what your opinion is of the importance of each of the topics we just discussed, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Sorry for the terrible chart. It was really fast. A, B, C, D, E, and F. Now, Andy went through there and he says, the most important thing to me is C. Man, I value that. That needs fixed. That needs focus. The least is E. If it gets done, that's great. But John felt this way about it, and Bob felt this way, and Dave felt that way, and Angie felt this way about it. And we're going to tally these up and get a number. Any of you guys really good with math? Can you help me?
No.
2 plus 3 plus 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 11.
5, 8, 9, 11. 9, 11, 14, 19.
19.
19?
10, 19, 19.
19.
Consensus says, survey says
6, 11, 16.
15?
15.
Okay.
I went to public school.
Totally not uncommon to have two really high numbers. But everybody in this discussion group that we went through with all this information, I'm not going to have to tell you now, Galen, you see this? That's your job. I need to take care of that by Friday. Because when we did the thing about the papers, those employees said, here's the two big issues. A, the paper is not the right color and the laser can't read red and green. And B, we had these boxes, which was terrible, these little bitty boxes on these routers, and in that box, you had to write with blue pen, regular standard ballpoint pen, your initials, the date,
Social security number, date of birth.
right,
date it was made.
all this information, and there was a work code, X something, 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 I forget what it was. All that had to get inside that box. And it physically was not possible. What did Mike tell me? Andy, we need small point pens, ballpoint, fine needle point pens.
Take the box.
They were there the next day. Couldn't. The router was just had to have all. There were pages of steps. You couldn't change it, and it was a major thing to do change because it was a what do they call it? Format that come out of some whatever. By ordering 2 boxes of ink pens, they were there the next day, and I went to Chuck Allison, my lead engineer, who was ahead of that particular 2 projects. I said, hey Chuck, if you'll change those papers from red and green to whatever, anything else, the laser will read them. He goes, really? I said, yeah, really. He said, fine. He went and pulled all the routers, changed all of them. That problem was gone. Here's the thing. Other than letting Chuck know the information and me ordering the ink pens, I didn't have to go to a single operator, say, no, Dave, you make sure you get this done, Angie, you do this, Grant, you do that. I didn't have to do any of that. Nobody else had to do that. Nobody was in charge of the outcome, except for the individual stakeholders in that meeting, and we call them subject matter experts. The SMEs, every one of you in this meeting or in a given process like this are a subject matter expert. That's why you're here. Because we're talking about how to increase sales for 30% this year in our new business that we formed. And you solved the problem. And now you have ownership and you were heard. I don't have to tell you anything.
Now, can I just put a little coda on this? So I'm curious then, let's say we did all that, distilled all this information, got it down to what it's supposed to be, all that. I would guess, you tell me, but I would guess at that point, then this becomes maybe even in some cases, especially for increasing sales, some kind of a motto,
Yeah.
some kind of a
Yeah.
visible thing
Sure.
that everybody is aware of that entire year to remind them of what they said to solve the problem,
Well,
right? Is
Yes.
that true?
Yes. And
Or
no,
is it
and
already
no.
so internalized that
Well,
it's not necessary?
you have things that you value above anybody else in here. Like there are personal things that are yours. You own them.
Sure.
Whether that's feeding the dogs in the morning or making sure you get to work on time, that is your heart and soul. Like this is, you own that.
Okay.
That's what this produced. Ownership of the solutions in every person. I can write it up on a wall, right? Yes, from here on out we are hereby, here, how many times have you been in the business meeting and the boss said, hear ye, from henceforth and forever we shall, blah, 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 and you're going, yeah,
Until we don't.
until we don't because it's not gonna work and you didn't listen to any of us in the first place.
And he doesn't do the job,
And
he
he doesn't-
doesn't know how to do it.
Got it. You got it. But now, in this process, and why I love these tools, is because I didn't have to tell those operators anything. I didn't have to go back a week later and say, now, did you write that down? Did you run that through the checkbox? It all just happened naturally. Because you have ownership.
That's a good point.
I have the ownership. You have the ownership. It's not about me as if I was the leader in that business, and I was a nobody in that business. I did the same thing, quick story, we'll be done. I did the same thing with the executives and the senior level people the first time I ever did it. And when we got down to here, one of the biggest aha moments I've ever seen happen. We had a guy there named Tom something, and he was the most contrary man in that business. Everybody knew that we had to get these projects out for our end user customers. It's all internal, right? But these guys were just on board with it. Hey, we've got this and that, and we got this project and that, and we're all kind of working, stumbling through it some way, and we're all going at it. But Tom, don't bring anything to him, buddy. Everybody knew it. He was a pain in the neck, but he had massive influence inside the company. So he was important. You couldn't get away from him. In this meeting, everybody was just like this, bang to bang to bang. Everybody's agreed, but Tom was completely opposite of everybody else. And I'm going, oh my word! I knew he would do that. You know, I'm inside. I didn't say that. Inside my head, I'm thinking, man, I can't believe he did that. What he said, and Bruce, the key leader of the whole group, he was the key guy. He said, Tom, I'm looking at these numbers, and you're completely opposite. He brought it up. You're completely opposite of everybody in this business. What is that? He said, I'll tell you why. He said, my job when I got hired is I have to provide solutions for this business 20 years from now. And your job is to get it done today because your customer has a problem. And that was the major problem of the whole business unit, okay? That business unit had two real commands. If this room is on fire and Bob and I are arguing about what color to paint it, we're off topic. We gotta get that fire put out. Galen's like, guys, I got fire put out. Bob's like, no, I think blue, Andy. I love blue. I'm like, no, I'm making more of a red. And that's what we were doing as a business. Our customers' buildings were on fire. Processes were on fire. They couldn't make their deliveries. Hundreds of thousands, hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And we're saying, you know what? If we had a green fixture, that would work better. So we fell into this middle ground of nothing, and nothing was getting accomplished. And the customer's going, I need this right now. And we're like, yeah, we know. But anyway, we're focusing over here. And when Tom made that statement, it flipped the whole business. All of a sudden, Bruce understood. Bruce, he's like my boss's boss. Like, I have a manager, he's their manager. He says, okay, here's what we're doing. And we did it. We focused on short term. Everything that was in that business had to get out that was on fire. We got it out of there. And everything else that Tom was working on got more priority. And now, as the executives were coming in day after day, week after week in that 2-3 month period of time, they quit coming. They moved into a new building. They bought a new building. It's all new technology, new offices, it's just like booming business. And they were getting ready to cut its throat. They were done. These tools saved all those jobs.
So Andy, how would somebody who wanted to have this done, say for example here at the sign shop, Galen and I want to have you come in, do this, tell us quickly about that, and then we can wrap up.
So that's something I offer. That's a service I offer. You know what I mean? I'll come in, teach you the whole tools, walk you through the whole process. Once you learn it one time, you're off to the races doing it yourself. I'm happy to facilitate. I love doing it. I'm passionate about it. You
Can't hardly tell.
Right. But it works. That's the real key thing. These tools work. There's other things we didn't get to. We go talk about the swim lane. We can't get there, but just flip through to that chart. If you can. You
I'll
can't.
have to.
That's fine. We'll get to that. All of what we just did covered all three of these things. We got through the data and the information. Now we have understanding. If we operate correctly, we're working in wisdom in our business. That's a thing. There's a lot more we can unpack here. But these are just constructive tools that really, really work, and I'm really happy to show them to you, help you in any way I can.
Thank you.
Questions? I'm done. I'll shut up. But if you got any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you.
No questions? I didn't do that good of a job.
Well, it's a lot to
Yeah,
process.
I love that.
And you did a good job of packing a 2-hour thing into like a little over 20 minutes, so thank you for that. But, go ahead.
So we had this meeting last month, and so far over my head, just because it is a lot to do. And so I really wanted it again, because it's exactly what John said. And I know somebody has requested Andy from that meeting to come to their business. But from a personal standpoint, we all can't do that. But I went ahead, because I was hearing this affinity diagram, irrational diagram.
Interrelational, but that's better. I like that term better.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Nominal group. And then they would use acronyms.
Oh, yes, we love that.
And so on a personal level, I can tell you that in the very short term, for the affinity,
Affinity diagram.
for the affinity diagram, we're just talking about seriously brainstorming, right? For the
Interrelational.
whatever that one.
I like the irrational. I think that's even better.
We're just
love that.
We're just putting those things all in orders and categories that we brainstorm, and then we're counting the ins and outs, and the ones with the, which one was the one with the most outs?
Outs is the key driver.
Most outs. Most outs is our driver that we need to focus on. And then, what's the last one?
Nominal group technique.
Nominal.
Which is this guy right here, where he's got
This
really
is-
tallied
this-
up.
This is your nominal group technique.
Where you
This is
tally up
everybody's
the-
opinion on priority.
And where, if we rate those things that we put all in that category, I can see where a third party, or John and I agree or disagree. And even if we were doing that with our spouses, our significant others, our friend, our mentor, whoever, and just threw them in the mix or something, I think we could all do this
Absolutely.
at home. And it was just so sky in the pie, one of the other times. I really do appreciate it. I feel like I may not know how to say the words, but I understand.
I understand what you mean now.
You can take every project you're working on today. If you sat down and took the time, got Microsoft OneNote out, or just a pad of paper like this, a big pad of paper and a Post-it notes, and you said, okay, what's the project you're working on today? What's one task? Just one task.
Through the day.
Well,
Meetings all day.
meetings, okay?
Meetings, you know, schedule.
Even if you just want to do your schedule, okay, I've got this meeting, that meeting, this meeting, or in my case, when I worked the second time as a lead design engineer at General Electric, we would work on a project for 3 weeks and get all down in the weeds and talk to people in Madisonville, Kentucky, and Lynn, Massachusetts, and all these different places, because that's where all of our groups were. And we'd all have all these brainstorming sessions, and we would talk, and we got all the solutions. And we got done with what we were doing and turned it over to this company, Glenn down here at Madisonville, Kentucky. He goes, okay, we'll work on it. You didn't hear from him in 3 months. 3 months goes by, he goes, hey, we got it, here, let's, and you're like, wait a minute, I've been working on 17 other projects while I'm waiting on you to get that answer. I did an affinity diagram with every project I worked on OneNote. Like this, anything I thought of about that project, I wrote it down, da-da-da, 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 da-da-da. And then in the OneNote, you can go back and put a label and say, this is the red topic, the green topic, the blue topic, whatever. This is the starred topic, whatever it is. And I organized my own stuff and just did the affinity alone. Nothing else, just the affinity on my project, on my computer, by myself. And they would come back to me, one job they came back to me 18 months later and said, hey, what about that one detail? Oh, yes, no problem. It's right here. Yeah, it's right here. And just like that. And they were like, wow, how did you know that? Because I did an affinity on it. By myself. For nobody else's benefit but mine.
No, it was other people's benefit too.
Well, it ended up benefiting the group, but my point was, it works in a group setting, and it works privately. That's how effective it is.
Awesome.
Sorry.
The interrelational diagram or whatever gave us an action item, which was to focus on training. Did the nominal group technique give us a second action item?
It weighed it let the group know, because it's nominal group technique, That's a really group tool. It weighed everybody's opinion. So what we went out of here with, in the case of Tom, we all now knew who valued what and why they were doing that. So it wasn't so much like another action item, but it gave us knowledge
We'll prioritize.
and priority.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just good to know.
Very good to know.
Okay.
Very good to know. And can you imagine me as a lead engineer, which sounds good, but this means nothing, going to my boss's boss and saying, now, hey, Bruce, here's what we need you to do. I'm sorry, he's just gonna go.
The other thing that I use that one for, the nominal group technique, is if you're choosing people to spearhead one of those, there's no sense in putting the guy who put it as a 1,
Right.
having him lead that.
Oh,
Good point.
Good
Good
point.
point.
That is nice.
You take somebody that says that's a 5.
That's a 5 for
that
me.
they're passionate about
That's
it.
very valid.
So
Very,
if
very
you go
valid.
through on my line, there would be no sense in putting me leading A or B.
Right.
You'd want me leading E.
At least D or E.
Well, 19 came up as the high one here, and you're a 4.
Right.
So either you or Bob would be really good choices to say, hey, these guys are particularly passionate about this project.
Hey, I'm on there too.
Yeah, you're on there too. John's on there. He had a 5 too. So that's where they work, and that's a great point, Dave.
Yeah.
Great point.
Excellent point.
That is nice.
Okay, in the interest of time, I always try to keep these meetings 8:15. We went over a little bit, apologize. You're welcome to stay as long as you want and discuss this as long as you want, but I'm gonna formally dismiss the meeting, that if those that need to go right ahead. If not, stay as long as you wish, we don't care. But I wanna at least give a cutoff to those that need to run out, so, there you
I'm
go.
gotta go.
Or get some coffee or what.
driving.
Well done, Andy.